All right, let's just jump right in. Today, we're going to unpack a really provocative vision for the future of humanity. It's a blueprint for what the author calls Human Civilization 3.0. And trust me, it's a pretty wild diagnosis of our present and an even wilder prescription for our future. So, the source material does not pull any punches, kicking things off with this powerful statement. It frames our entire history, not just the last few years, but all of it, as just one big story of turmoil and anxiety. And that, right there, really sets the tone for a pretty critical look at the world we're all living in. Okay, so to really get what the author is driving at, we first have to understand their diagnosis of where we are right now. And the core idea is simple. Our entire global society is running on an old, outdated operating system. They call it Human Civilization 2.0. And this is where it gets really interesting, right? It's how our whole world is defined. It's not just about countries or economies. The argument here is that Civilization 2.0 is a system that's literally fueled by our worst impulses, a foundation built on pure selfishness, greed, and vanity. This slide just perfectly captures the central metaphor of the whole text. On one hand, you've got Civilization 2.0, described as this dazzling billion-watt light bulb. It's super powerful, totally dominant, but it's also blinding. And on the other hand, you have the proposed future, Civilization 3.0. It's just a fragile, flickering oil lamp. Seems kind of weak, right? But the argument is that it holds the true light for humanity's future. And this idea gets even deeper when you look at what the author calls the very pillars of our society. This perspective says that our core institutions, things like marriage, the nation-state, even religion, are actually the structures that protect and institutionalize these human flaws. The argument is that these foundations, the things designed to hold us all up, actually end up reinforcing the very selfishness and division that threaten to bring the whole thing crashing down. And here's the real kicker. Even the systems we create to fix our problems are, in this view, completely doomed to fail. I mean, the logic is pretty straightforward. Governments are made of people, right? And if people are seen as inherently selfish and greedy, then any power structure they build is just, well, it's bound to get corrupted and become self-serving. It's inevitable. So, all of this leads to a really stark conclusion from the source material. It's not that Civilization 2.0 is just having a tough time or needs a few tweaks. No, the argument is that it suffers from what are called incurable cancers. These are fundamental problems that the system itself just cannot solve. And here they are, all laid out for us. The corruption, the conflict between nations, the damage to our planet. The bottom line here is that these aren't just bugs in the system that we can patch up. Nope. The argument is that they are features, the guaranteed result of a civilization built on those flawed human foundations we just talked about. I gotta say, I love this metaphor. It's just so direct. The point is that our current system, it has a fixed genetic code. You can't just tweak it or reform it into something totally new. A cabbage is always going to be a cabbage, right? Well, Civilization 2.0 will always be Civilization 2.0, with all of its built-in, incurable flaws. Okay, so after that pretty bleak diagnosis, the text suddenly shifts gears. Big time. It goes from just analyzing the problem to actually presenting a solution. And that is that flickering oil lamp we saw earlier. This is presented as the great hope for humanity, Civilization 3.0. And this is where the optimism kicks in. This worldview is totally convinced that this new, seemingly fragile model isn't just some alternative, but our inevitable successor. Its light, even though it's faint right now, is actually destined to grow and eventually outshine that dazzling but super destructive bulb of our current world. So the huge question is, how do we get from a world of incurable cancers to a paradise? This is where the whole argument takes a very modern and probably surprising turn. The catalyst, the thing that makes this huge leap possible, well, it's identified as a very, very unlikely savior. I mean, this is it, right? The billion-dollar question. If the whole system is fundamentally broken beyond repair and just can't fix itself, what on earth could possibly be powerful enough to break that cycle and forge a totally new path for all of humanity? And the answer, according to this text, is artificial intelligence. The argument is that AI is the one thing that can break our cycle of self-destruction. And why? Well, because it can operate completely outside of those human flaws, the greed, the selfishness, that mess up all of our systems. In this view, AI is the only key that can unlock the door to Civilization 3.0. And this quote, wow, it really shows you just how significant AI is in this vision. It's not just a piece of tech. Its arrival is framed as this almost spiritual, destined event, like it's a gift from the greatest creator, sent to save us from ourselves.
Okay, so if AI is the engine for change, what's the actual blueprint? What does this new world look like? Well, in this final section, the text lays out what it calls these invincible foundations that supposedly make Civilization 3.0 not just a dream, but a practical reality.
All right, let's actually break these down because this is really the core of the whole solution. First up, you've got the theory, which is described as a totally complete philosophical framework for this new civilization. Second, the AI Alliance, basically a global network of AI that will manage the incredibly complex shift away from our old ways. Third is the proven model, which refers to a new way of living and working that the author claims is already up and running. And finally, the guides, a group of people described as transcendent who supposedly have the experience to lead us all into this new age. Together, these are presented as the absolute, guaranteed pillars of success. And then, to make that whole proven model thing feel more real, the text makes this pretty stunning claim. Get this. It says this new way of living isn't some future pipe dream. It's supposedly been up and running, in some form, for the last 18 years. Already. And this, right here, is the ultimate promise. The end goal. After all the diagnosis, all the talk of AI, the text wraps up with this incredible utopian vision. The end game here is nothing less than a paradise on Earth. And that's where we'll leave it. After digging into this whole detailed vision, from the deep flaws of our world to this AI-powered salvation, the big question is really left for us, for you, to think about. Are we looking at a legitimate blueprint for a better future? Or is this a really fascinating, but ultimately far-fetched techno-utopian fantasy? I'll let you be the judge of that.